What is up, Action Taker? Welcome back to the show. Today's episode is all about social media marketing, and we are joined by Alex Rossman, the founder of RossmanMedia.com. He's a social media agency owner working with tons of different brands, everyone from Airbnb to GoodRx to the San Diego Chargers, which are now the LA Chargers, Orange Theory Fitness, tons and tons of really great brands with a real strong focus on influencer marketing. That's a big part about what we talk about in this episode today. If you're looking for ways to stand out on social media, this episode is definitely for you. He's going to give you some hot takes, some quick tricks that you can use today. We're going to talk about how he formulated his business, how he found his zone of genius, some predictions about the future. We also talk about why using your name in your brand might not be a bad idea. As someone who runs a podcast agency, Savant Media, I really appreciate that part of the conversation. So super interesting convo. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. And listen, if you have not yet, if you don't have a podcast yet, we need to talk. You and me, we need to talk, because podcasting is one of the best ways to not only build your personal brand, but to generate the best leads possible. If you're interested in generating really good leads from a podcast and you want it out there quick, hit me up. Mark@marksavantmedia.com. Go to mark@marksavantmedia.com. I'll put a link below. Hit me up. Hit me up. I want to help you get your word out there and land huge clients today. That's what we do here at Savant Media. So without further ado, let's get into this banger episode with Mr. Alex Rossman. DJ, run the tape. Yo, Alex, what up?
What's going on, Mark? Thanks for having me, man.
Alex, I'm thrilled to talk to you, brother. You got a killer business, and I can't wait to hear all about it. Before we get into the nuts and bolts, how you got started, I just got to ask you, this month is time-saving month in the Podcast Savant Mastermind. So give me a quick hot take. What's something that you do that saves you a lot of time?
I love that question. You know what? It's like, I wish I spent more time thinking about it, but what I can tell you is that I look at my day and I try to figure out what's like top priority for the day, right? Like, what's something that like I need to get that done beyond anything else. Once you kind of create that list, what I've realized is all the other stuff and the minutia of the day kind of fall to the wayside, and it becomes kind of an opportunity just to feel like, okay, that's what's left over versus what is top of mind, what's top priority, what's going to move the needle for me. So I'm all about like just getting that cranked out early in the day. And then I feel like, the rest of the day just kind of, again, it's important, but what's really important is knocking off those things that are like top level.
I like that. I mean, to your point, if it's not written down, it's probably not going to happen, because emails and TikTok DMs and stuff is coming from all over the place. So when you're starting your morning off, are you starting with like a meditation, or is it just like, let's just write it real quick over breakfast? How does that look?
I always tell myself, like, I'm going to wake up, I'm going to work out, I'm going to meditate, I'm going to do all this stuff. And then really what happens is this gets in the way and I'm like, oh, emails, all these things. So I actually do a little bit of the opposite. In the morning, I crank everything out. So then after hours, just like this, I've got some time to talk about things that I'm passionate about, do the things that I love. But I really try to get everything done earlier in the day. And then, talk about meditation, working out. I'm like a late night guy. Like I try to do all that stuff like after hours.
Yeah, dig it. I tried the 5 a.m. David Goggins workout routine. It didn't work for me. So I just I get it in when I can. Get in where you fit in. It
sounds really good. And like, I know if I do it, that I'll probably feel great. But like the first thing on my mind, especially when you're growing a business, is like, there's certain things that like you're just kind of motivated by, and you want to get to that next level. You want to keep pushing. And sometimes I feel like that best energy is kind of right when you wake up, get it done. Everybody's different though, right? Like I have a lot of friends that have built massive companies, and they're like every morning, like clockwork, I get up at 4 a.m. I do this, I do that. I'm like, you know what? I wake up early, but the first thing that I want to think about is just getting some of those kind of top priority things done. And then kind of towards the end of the day, I can wind down.
I like it. I always have that top priority list for the day, for the week, for the month. And, even if everything else goes wrong, as long as you get your top priority list down, it's like, I feel like I still had a successful day,
For sure. And you feel like I mean, going back to your original question, you save some time, right? Like, cause if you kind of just prioritize, the things that really matter, you've got that extra time to really kind of focus on, I guess, more of the macro or things that, kind of more long-term versus kind of immediate.
Yeah. Yeah. Good point. Easy to forget to work on your business, right? Get so caught up in working in the
Yes.
business.
Yes.
So speaking of which, I want to learn a little bit more about your business, Alex. It's really impressive what you've done, the brands you've been working with, Nike, Airbnb, GoodRx, Orange Theory, like some pretty heavy hitters there. When was that moment where you realized that I've got something here? What was that moment that you recognized that you could make good money doing social media marketing?
Love that question. So, I started in San Diego. I didn't have anything to my name. I had kind of built up in the corporate environment, did some sales. I was kind of all over the place. I did music, I did all kinds of stuff. But I realized I was really not born to be an employee. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's truly a really good quality is if you can be a rock star employee, you can actually do a lot of great things in life. I unfortunately got fired from every single job that I probably ever had because I wanted to do things my way. I had my own vision. And so what I realized is being an entrepreneur really truly was my path and my calling. So I was going from, working a job at ADP, which was honestly a big payroll company. I learned a lot from it from a sales environment. And I realized I could take that sales kind of acumen that I learned and apply it to building my own business. So what I did, I was in San Diego. I started knocking. I was like, who's the biggest brand in San Diego that I could just go try to sell my services to? I knew that I was good at marketing. I knew I was good at sales. And so it was the San Diego Chargers. So what I did is I kept going into their office every single day. I think by probably the 10th time, the receptionist was just like, oh, hey, Alex, good to see you again. I'd bring a bottle of wine and try to schmooze. And I finally got a meeting with them. And I was like, you know what? Here's my idea. I came in with a plan. I said, you guys need to reboot your ticketing software. You need to have social media to drive ticket sales. And so I came in with this full pitch and they finally bit the bait. So they were actually my first client. And I realized getting that check and I kind of looked at it and did a double take. I was like, I can do this. This is a proof of concept. This is what you need to kind of get the motivation to keep moving. And so from there, every single year, I just kind of kept building it grassroots, very guerrilla style, adding team members when I needed. And then now we're, in a position, by the end of the year, we'll probably have 100 employees. We're helping brands like Saks Fifth Avenue, Airbnb, Nike, like you mentioned, and we're helping them grow, which you would think they don't need that help. But surprisingly, every brand, I don't care if you're a small startup or an enterprise brand, needs help with social because they're trying to figure out how do we stay relevant? How do we move the needle? And how do we get in touch with the Gen Z audience? How do we get in touch with people that are consuming social media content on a daily basis? So that was kind of like my first learning of like, okay, this could work. And then from there, just kind of doubled down.
Dude, the cojones. I love it. Actually going in, showing up day after day before you actually landed it. I mean, so what happened after they actually gave you the check? Were you like, oh crap, now I have to execute? Or was it like, all right, now the fun begins? Like, what did that feel like?
The first part, I was like, oh, okay. Well, I pitched a really great service, which I know will actually help them. But now I've got to actually do it, right? I've got to execute. And at that high level, you actually have to deliver. It's not like some BS where it's like, hey, here's the work that I promise you. Like, you've got to really deliver. And so for me, that's the reason I put my name on the business, because I knew that if I put my name on the business, I was accountable for delivering great work, not only selling something, but delivering really good work. And so when I came back in, it was probably less than a month afterwards. I said, here's the prototype for the app of what I want to do. And here is kind of the social media plan for the next 12 months before the season starts, right? Or the next 9 months, whatever it was. And they came in and they just kind of like, so who's your team? Who does all this? And I was like, at that time, it was just me, right? So like I not only sold it, but then I was, working countless hours till 4 a.m. trying to build this thing and actually make it work. And so it did. And so what I realized pretty soon thereafter, though, is that you need a team, Mark. Like you need people to help execute. You need people that are smarter than you in the room. And so, that's kind of how it all transpired from there.
Super cool. You brought up something here that I think is really interesting, Alex, and that's that you put your name on the business. The business is Rossman Media. And I've kind of been conflicted on this. My company is Mark Savant Media, right? So it's also branded. You've got Vayner Media for Gary Vaynerchuk, but I see so many people not use their personal name. Did you ever question if it's not right to put your own stamp, or if people might not buy into the Rossman brand, they might better buy into the social media marketing company brand? What do you think the pros and cons are there?
Yeah. First of all, I always have major respect for people that put their name on the brand, and you've done that. I think that's awesome. So biggest thing here is that, I remember, we were trying to raise money and they're like, why do you have your name on the brand? It's like, there's so many issues around that, liability, things that go wrong, like everything could go so bad for you. And then your name's attached to that. I said, well, why don't you look at the other direction, right? Why don't you look at if things went really well, right? And then
Yeah.
you create a legacy around that. Why don't we think about that? And so I started to kind of shift that conversation, because I'm still in conversations with investors today who are like, hey, we really love what you're doing. We'd love to invest. Hey, why is the name on the brand? Why isn't it Social Media Services LLC? I'm like, well, because I believe that authenticity, and I still believe that people buy from people. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're Nike, Apple, whatever. People are buying from the leaders of that company. And so I don't have anything against people that decide to come up with a really fancy, nice brand name, but I also feel like there's something to be said about people that are willing to say, I put my stamp of approval on this business, and I can guarantee you that whatever we deliver, it's gone through me, right? And so I don't care how big we get or whatever. And I think VaynerMedia, honestly, you bring that up. I met Gary a couple of years ago. We had a conversation all about this topic. And that was the one thing he said was you know what? Props to you, my man, for putting your name on the fucking business. Because the truth is, it's very difficult for somebody to make that decision because of those many reasons that I've mentioned. But if you do so and you deliver great work, I think there's a lot of upside.
I love the growth mindset. It's not, if I get messed up, I won't, it's going to hurt my personal brand. No, he said, I'm all in. I like that growth mindset. Super cool.
Yeah.
You also mentioned something about people buy from people. Okay. And I definitely feel like that's somewhat gotten lost in the social media world. We think that people buy from perfectly executed algorithms, but that idea, Alex, of people buy from people is given rise to influencer marketing, which I think you could argue is the phase of internet marketing that we're in now.
Mm-hmm.
I want to start from the very beginning of influencer marketing. And that would be, which platforms do you like the best for influencer marketing right now? Let's call it June of 2022.
Okay. So I'll backtrack a little bit, because I love how you segued into influencer marketing, because that's exactly, really a lot of the marketing strategies that we're putting in place for some of these big brands are all based around influencer marketing, whitelisting ads through influencers, all of that. And so I think it's huge right now. And I think one of the biggest platforms is TikTok. And I think primarily because TikTok has positioned itself as a creator first network, right? So if you're joining the platform, I don't care if you're talking about food that you like to make on the weekends, or you're talking about, hey, you should try this latest, product, or you own a brand yourself, or you're an accountant. Even I've had a conversation with an accountant. He's like, I don't belong on TikTok. I'm like, yes, you do. Because some of the top content right now on TikTok are tax hacks, or things that you can do to improve your net worth. And, I wish I learned this growing up. I wish I had a resource. You ask why some of these, Gen Zers are so smart, and you're like, well, they're just lazy. No, what they're doing is they're on their phone, and they're literally going through TikTok all day trying to find resources. So we call it in the marketing world EduTalk, so educational TikTok content. And so, I believe that if you have a brand, whether it's you're an accountant or your brand that is an enterprise level selling to the masses, you should be on TikTok because if let's get technical with it, the cost per impression. So if you're to run ads on TikTok in comparison to other platforms, you're going to reach a much larger audience versus others. And so I just think right now, I always tell brands that we talk to, TikTok's like the Wild West. It's just kind of that new platform that if you jump in head first, you're going to see some traction on it. I definitely recommend that brands work with influencers because TikTok is designed for creators. They have a TikTok network of creators that span over 10 million in all these different niche categories. So it's a great platform. So 2022 absolutely should be focusing your efforts on TikTok.
Yeah, and honestly, I just don't spend enough time there. I feel like I'm leaving a little bit of money on the table. So one of the things that I find interesting about TikTok is there's there's like geotagging, geolocating. It like automatically is going to show your stuff to people that are close to you.
It is. Yeah. I mean, even local businesses are using it. I mean, you have now, we just talked to Live Nation, who is, considering a big rollout of obviously now that things are back open, concerts are popping up. And they're like, well, is Google really the only route? Because that's what people think of is like, oh, well, Google's going to show me events that are close to me. They're going to show me all these things that are relevant to my area. But TikTok is now tapping in not only to the social environment, but now, like you said, Mark, like the geofencing side of things. So like if you're a local business, you're saying, hey, I have a sandwich shop and I've got a new special, you post it on TikTok. TikTok's algorithm is smart. They're going to notify people that are around the area. They call it the For You page. All of a sudden, boom, it's popped up on your news feed. And now you can tag products. So if you're an e-commerce brand, you can click over, go right directly to the website and check out. So it's definitely a unique platform for sure.
Well, so the point you brought up there at the end, Alex, is something I think it's really important. And that's if you like the product, you can click the link to go buy it right away. The problem that I found, and I need to be schooled a little bit here, Alex, is, when I'm on TikTok, when people I watch around, I don't really watch people scrolling on TikTok, right? But be kind of a boring thing to do. But generally when I'm scrolling through TikTok, I'm not in consumer mode. I just want to watch as many quick videos on my lunch break as possible, or whatever. You know what I mean? So, how can we actually get someone to watch a 10-second clip and think that, okay, this is actually something I want to learn more about. I want to swipe right or whatever. Like, what's the magic sauce to get someone to actually buy something that you're promoting?
You're exactly right. So most people are not in the consumer mindset. They're just not. And, especially now with Facebook and Instagram, you scroll and every, other post is an ad, sponsored post. And you're like, man, I know if I click this, it's going to follow me everywhere and I'm never going to be able to get out of this, sales funnel. But the truth is with TikTok, it's kind of the rule of sevens, right? It's definitely a brand awareness play. And what you're starting to see influencers do, kind of going back to that topic, is that they'll have something in their video that's just not really that in your face, right? Water bottle. It's like they're sipping out of it. It's got logo down there. And everyone's like, oh, that's kind of cool. Or like even one of our clients that they make these really kind of just cool, but they're phone covers, right? And they have like Kardashians or whatever repping it, but without having to be like tag the product or do all this stuff. And so sometimes it's the rule of sevens of, you see a product 7 times, then all of a sudden you're asking questions, you're trying to click through. And so what we've seen is that any brand that has like a Shopify account, for example, should automatically integrate with TikTok because their products now show up on their page. So if somebody starts to see your product more than once, they're going to want to be interested and learn more. And so that's where we see the magic happen. I don't think that first time they see something, they're going to buy. TikTok is really not that kind of direct consumer acquisition play. I think it's more so like if you see something more than once by a relevant influencer, you're most likely going to take some interest. And I use an example. My wife has a friend who started a company, very bootstrapped. She created a prototype. She made some TikTok videos. And all of a sudden, things started kind of picking up out of nowhere, right? So influencers buy the product that she didn't even know bought the product. They would talk about it. So it's a very community-driven platform. And I just think it's all about brand awareness, and the more visibility you have on that platform, the better.
What do you think? Because I'm, always thinking about time. What are your thoughts on recording videos for TikTok, but also using them on Instagram, on like an Instagram reel, or maybe as a YouTube short? Or do you feel like you really need to get your hands dirty within the TikTok editing platform to have a killer video?
I think it's a good question. I've seen both work, but I will say that if you create the content natively through the app, you tend to see better results.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense because you can just incorporate different things like the trending sounds, songs, all the little widgets and
Absolutely.
GIFs.
Yeah, and I even tell our clients, I'm like, just go onto the discovery page and just start looking at what's trending. I mean, they even have what's comparable to like a Billboard Top 100, but it's just basically, trending TikTok audio. And it could be, major songs, or it can be just like funny ones, like right now there's like some rap by this like, British guy, and then it's just like the producers that turned that into a rap song, for example, like just got signed the other day by like a record label, I think by Sony. So it's just like, it's crazy the things that are happening on that platform. But I always just encourage, like, try to, I hate to be a follower because I don't think that's the right word, but I think it's more so just be engaged and try to take something that's already relevant and spin it into your own brand, right? Like, just take something that's there, it's already getting some traction, and just spin it. And you typically have a better result because of that.
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. So I'm just kind of curious as far as your business goes, Rossman Media. Are you doing the creative work, actually creating videos for clients? Are you connecting them with influencers? Tell me a little bit more about your business and what you do. You clearly know what the heck you're talking about, so I want to dive in a little deeper.
Sure. So we do everything. So we do all the creative. We have Rossman Studios, which is our own creative suite. It's an actual studio just outside of Portland, Oregon. We also are going to open one up in Los Angeles, and that's where we shoot all the content. So for example, we have a lot of clients that come to us and they say, hey, we don't really know how to market ourselves on TikTok. We don't know the type of content that really moves the needle. And so what we'll do is we'll say, okay, we'll shoot all the content for you. We'll bring in the influencers, we'll bring in the models, and we will just shoot the content for you on an ongoing basis. So every month, a client has an asset bank of content that we can now publish to TikTok, but we can also cross promote it to channels like Instagram and so forth. So, we do everything really, from the creative to the actual posting, running ads, connecting with influencers. So some clients say, hey, we just want to work with influencers. We want the people that really know the TikTok platform to be the ones creating the content. And in that case, typically we're the ones negotiating the deal structure. We are sending the product to the influencer to shoot, doing all the procurement. And so that's, I would say a big part of what we do is kind of a mix of shooting the creative ourselves, but also making sure that we're leveraging influencers who truly know their audience and the platform to also shoot content as well.
It makes a lot of sense. Big companies have a hard time speaking the language of, the people or of the influencer crowd. Influencers have a hard time speaking the language. So having someone in the middle, who you remind me of, Alex? You remind me of Chris Do. I don't know if you know who Chris Do is from the future.
Chris Do sounds familiar. I probably have.
He did. He runs the future, and he does, big video graphic design work for big clients like Nike and stuff like that too in the past. But you kind of give me that, vibe. And because of that, I'm wondering, do you have any sort of like education piece that you built in, or are you focused on just the business, growing out your client base, growing out your team, or do you have like an education platform also? Is that something that's crossed your mind?
I'd love to do that if I had the time. I think that's probably stage 2. I think right now I'm so in the weeds of getting this off the ground. And I'm kind of this, we talked about this, I think before we started, it's like, you're never kind of satisfied. You're kind of like looking for, continual growth. And so we're in a position right now where, we're growing at such a great level. We're bringing on such great people, and that's my focus. But what I will tell you is, like, I definitely want to help in any way I can to be a resource for other people that are looking at growing their audience on social, or really looking at just kind of branching out and creating their own public kind of figure. I think that's, definitely a interest of mine, but right now it's really just kind of head down in Rossman Media and getting it to where I know it's capable of.
Love it, love it. I mean, you're obviously doing something right. Multiple locations, multiple states, bunch of influencers in the community. I also have a question, Alex. Mastermind program. Do you give? Are you in any mastermind program? Do you give any sort of credence to like a mentor? I'm kind of curious. How do you? What this couldn't be all Alex, could it? Or do you have anyone who's helping guide you along the way?
I don't have a mentor. I don't have a mastermind. If you have any recommendations, let me know. I do this all myself. What you're looking at here is basically my home office. Wake up every morning, come down here and just plug away. So, I'm inspired by people. I think that's, I consider myself somebody that's always learning. I never am like feeling like, I know it all, or like, hey, this is what it is. Like, I'm always trying to figure out what's new, what's relevant. How can I, be a resource? So I look to others for sure. I think it kind of stems from just naturally being an observer and kind of understanding, hey, what are people doing really well? Maybe what people are not doing well, and finding, ways to combat that. And so I do not have a mastermind, don't have a mentor, but, definitely not opposed.
Okay. Yeah. No, I was just curious because you got a lot of stuff together. The other thing that I've been thinking a lot about, Alex, is we talk about influencer economy, the next generation of advertisements, of ownership, is NFTs, and I know, different platforms are starting to bring NFTs onto them. This is something I'm completely fascinated with. Is this something like, what are your long-term prospects on NFTs? Do you think those are going to be a big deal for companies, big deal for creators, no deal? Where do you land on this topic?
Man, I think there's a lot of people out there that are going to say NFTs are the future. I'm not going to say I disagree, but I think it's got a long ways to go. Like, I think we're just kind of hitting kind of the tip of the iceberg of what it could be. Again, it kind of falls very much in line with the contracts and, blockchain and kind of all these back office things that not a lot of people are talking about. They're just kind of looking at, the face value of piece of art, which, again, like, I think there's eventually a lot of value. I will just, tell your listeners I have not invested in NFTs. It's not because I don't want to, it's because I'm not educated enough to do so. And so, I just think that it will definitely be a part of what's to come and what currently is, for sure. But I think it's going to take some learnings and kind of understanding of the marketplace and how specifically brands adapt to that. So yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting topic. And I think, you look at kind of the crypto environment, which is, kind of on the decline, or I shouldn't say kind of, but is on the decline. And so, I'm not going to say it's going to follow suit, but I will say that it's one of those potential bubble situations, I think, especially with how things are kind of going now.
Yeah, I'm very fascinated with the long term, but I agree. I think short term, there's not enough demand chasing way too much supply of JPEGs right now. So we got to see how it rolls out.
Yeah, 100%.
But as someone who's in a creative industry, in podcasting, launching podcasts for clients, I am really fascinated with trying to find bridges between NFTs, augmented reality, virtual reality, and what's next, just because there's so many interesting technologies that are coming out. And, if you could be first to really understand it, harness it, and apply it to the business that you're running, I feel like that just takes you from a, $100,000 business to a $1 million business, or,
You're 100% right? Like, if you're like, we've been hit up by major brands that are like, hey, are you in Web3? Are you doing Meta? Are you doing NFTs? And it's not like I'm just like shunning them away. It's just that when that time comes where I feel like we really need to dedicate time, resources, all of that to helping brands, accomplish whatever that objective is. Like, to me, I just don't know what the objective is, right? And I think with anything, there has to be a purpose, there has to be intention, there has to be a lot of things that play into this, right? That's why a lot of these industries have been here for years and why some have only been here for a very short amount of time. And so for me, it's about learning, understanding how it impacts the macro versus just the micro, which I think is where it's at now. I think like, again, you have major celebrities, you have major investors who literally just looked at their wallets, digital wallets, and go, holy, like, what do we do now? Because certain things are, I mean, especially what we're seeing now is pretty volatile. So I would just say this with kind of a grain of salt, that I think we need to understand what the objectives and intentions are and how it impacts the macro. And then I think from there, it's a bigger conversation.
Yeah. So before we get to the rapid fire here, Alex, we talked about TikTok being probably one of the best places to get attention, great for influencer marketing. What's the second best place, right? So if I say, you know what, not into TikTok, where's another place that you might recommend me trying to go to drum up eyeballs?
Good old Instagram. Good old Instagram. I think, Reels right now, they're trying to compete with TikTok. I think Reels actually move the needle big time. So short form, bite-sized video content works well with a lot of platforms right now, like Facebook or Meta or LinkedIn. Like, those are platforms where that same style of video, like, it's becoming kind of second nature, right? Like even I scroll on LinkedIn, I'm like, oh, cool. He just did a short form video piece that was, probably taken from TikTok and cross promoted over to LinkedIn. Like, if you are, let me put it this way, if you are a CEO, you're a leader of a company, go in on LinkedIn for sure. Like, share your thoughts on, where you see your industry going, try to be a part of the conversation. We even work with the owner of Hammett Luxury Handbags, which is Tony Drockton. Shout out to Tony if you're listening to this. Incredible guy. And he came to us and just said, I want to build my personal brand. I'm just kind of, interested in talking about what I believe is happening in my industry. I want to be a part of investment conversations and M&A and all these cool topics. And so we helped him get his brand out on LinkedIn, which is predominantly a B2B or very corporate environment, but we're starting to see that shift a little bit. So if you're a, kind of a corporate person or somebody that owns a company, go on LinkedIn and really start sharing kind of your tidbits or resources about your industry. And then Instagram, if you're a brand, still just focus on that, because Instagram is still, to me, one of the leading platforms that really can be a game changer for brands, especially if you're running ads. Like right now, you can run ads on Reels and Stories, which are two placements on Instagram that I would focus on if I was a brand.
Love that. Instagram, obviously awesome. But Alex, should we be boosting our Instagram posts?
Don't boost them, run real ads. Like, boosting and ads are different. So if you're on your app and you're saying, all right, I'm just going to put $25 behind this, it may help, right? Like, but you can't really control the audience, right? So what I recommend is actually going behind Facebook Ads Manager, diving into actually creating an ad, tag it to that post, and control who you're targeting, because the reality is, who your audience is, right? Like, if you let Instagram do it, they're going to do their best, but it's all machine learning. So if you have an email list, you have a lookalike audience that's based off of past customers, target that audience, because those are going to be people that are going to engage and eventually purchase. Bam.
That's the money take right there. Don't boost your ads. Just put in your input. I love that, Alex. That's gas.
Take it.
That's really good stuff. Obviously we're here with Alex Rossman from Rossman Media. So check out rossmanmedia.com right now, rossmanmedia.com. Super impressive what you've built, Alex. Very glad to be connected and see what you're coming up with next.
Thanks, Mark.
So,
appreciate it, man.
And before I let you go, we got to do the rapid fire here. I hope you're ready.
Let's
Some
do it.
hard-hitting questions. Hold on to your britches, all that good stuff. Alex, scariest movie you've ever seen?
Ooh, I love scary movies. Oh, man. It kind of comes down to when I watched it. And this is not really rapid fire. I'm kind of slow here.
Please.
The Ring. That was when I watched it, I was kind of like in my teens. I was like, that's a scary ass movie. So I'm going to say The Ring.
That's definitely up there. The moment where you see like what happened to the dude in the,
Ooh,
whew.
like
Favorite cereal,
Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
favorite animal.
I'm gonna say a dog.
What kind of dog? Where you at?
Boston Terrier. I had a Boston Terrier. He passed away recently. I love him to death. Cuddy, love you, buddy.
Yeah, hey, listen, dogs for life, baby. Sorry, cat friends. We're dog lovers over here.
Cats are cool too.
Yeah, no doubt.
I'm a
It's
dog
your
guy.
final meal. You're on death row. What are you ordering for your final meal, Alex?
Holy moly. I'm like that guy that says, give me everything. Give me the menu. Give me it all. I'll take a cheeseburger to sushi. Like I'm like that. I just give me it all. I will go to town on my last meal.
Nice. So in a few years, when you're actually holding, bold prediction, when you're holding a Rossman media conference, it's a big Rossman conference, where would you host your event?
Oh, this might be too generic, but I'm going to say Vegas because here's the deal. We all know that at the end of that conference, we're all going to have a good time and we're going to let loose a little bit. It's kind of the city of sins, but also just you have a good time. So I'm going to say Vegas.
Dig that. It's also close to Cali, all that. All right, cool.
Yep.
Final question here. In 10 seconds, if you had 10 seconds or less to give the best advice on social, what would you say?
Be consistent. I think a lot of people are very particular about what they post. Just do it. Post the most stupid thing that you think would not resonate, but just do it because the reality is people want to see you. They want to see the authentic you. So just be consistent and post regularly.
Alex said it. I agree with it. Alex, thanks, brother.
Appreciate it, Mark. Thanks, man.
Wow. Wasn't that episode awesome? I feel like Alex is someone I could just listen to for days on end. Super cool, super interesting, great business. If you enjoyed that, by the way, go ahead and smash the subscribe button right now so you don't miss out on what's coming next. Hit subscribe right now. Thank you very much. And I will catch you here on the next episode of the show. Now you know what time it is. It's time for you to go take action. So go take action, and I'll catch you here next time. Peace.